Big time main event coming up this weekend. We have Marvin Vettori, the Italian Dream, taking on the Trailblazer, Kevin Holland. As always, one half of your hosting duo, Craig Allen. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. Matt Allen, you can find him at Matt Allen FNP on the respective socials. And we're really looking forward to Question Mark Kicks coming up this Saturday, where we get the final opportunity to preview the fights. We get to make our final predictions. Maybe somebody had a tough weight cut. Maybe some of these fights fell out. We get a final opportunity to talk about them. There's also great interviews on the channel for this week. We've got Kyle Dawkins. We've got Joe Solecki. We've got Sasha Palatnikov. Some really good ones out there. Make sure you check those out. But in our main event, well, we were getting ready for Darren Till. It was supposed to be the Scouser, and he was going to be taking on Marvin Vettori in a really interesting clash of styles. Till mostly known as a striker, Vettori very well-rounded. And now, with Darren Till out due to collarbone issues, you have Kevin Holland. And it's so weird how Kevin Holland's life has changed in the last 2 weeks to where he was our 2020 Fight Night Picks Male Fighter of the Year. And he had that distinction with a lot of different shows and a lot of different people. His 2020 was insane. He won 5 fights. He was finishing people. He finished Jacare Souza, knocked him out. He finished Charlie Ontiveros, not Charlie Olives, but Charlie Ontiveros. Unless he has a right hand like Butterbean, I don't know how the hell he's going to beat poor Marvin Vettori. And it's such a weird fight because for Vettori, listen, we saw these two guys be in a spot where a lot of people, yourself included, and I'm not trying to make fun of you and single you out, but true. A lot of people thought Holland was supposed to fight Vettori back in the fall, but it wasn't so. Holland was supposed to fight the man himself, Jack Hermanson. Vettori was supposed to fight Jacare Souza. There was COVID on Holland's side. Things got mixed around. Holland gets Jacare, knocks him out. Vettori put on probably the most impressive performance of his career, unless you count Venator fights, where he beat Jack Hermanson and beat him handily in that one too.
He looked great in that fight, and I had Jack Hermanson winning that fight. Sorry, that makes it sound like I had him winning at the end of the fight. I thought going into that fight that the grappling of Jack Hermanson would be a little bit too much for Marvin Vettori, and unlike a lot of what Vettori did, I just thought it was too early for him. I was very wrong, though, and Marvin Vettori proved that he's actually a really good 5-round fighter, and his style actually does pertain to 5-round atmosphere, and it's interesting, because there's a lot of fighters who, here's a good example, Zabit would probably be undefeated if every fight was only 3 rounds, but he's a guy who you can tell that 4th and 5th round will be a struggle once he gets to that area. With Vettori, we see him in that 4th and 5th round against a guy like Jack Hermanson, who's known for his really good cardio and really good output. Marvin Vettori looked great against him, and it's really important, too, when you go back to that fight. Not only was that nominated for Fight of the Year on the UFC's own website, which tells you how good of a fight it was a fight that showed every aspect of Marvin Vettori's game. He showed his takedowns himself against a very good grappler. He showed his takedown defense. And he showed, I'd say, uncharacteristic power. Because for Marvin Vettori, I don't want to liken him to a Brad Tavares, but I thought they were very much a similar fighter going into that fight. I thought they had good power, but not great power, to where if they clip you clean and you have your hands down, they can put you down. But unless you are in one of those crazy brawls, their power doesn't really stay. Marvin Vettori just kept on landing straight lefts over and over and over, and eventually Jack Hermanson did fall down due to them. Now, Hermanson showed great heart, got back to his feet, and did have one of the better fights of last year, but I was just really happy to see that Marvin Vettori showed every aspect of his game, and it's something that we talk about probably too much, where you learn a lot more about a fighter if they win a hard 3-round decision than if they just go out there and beat their opponent in 10 seconds by knockout.
Like Aliaskhab Kriziev in his fight, or Kizriev, who's taking on Kyle Dawkins.
Exactly. You don't learn as much if they're just going out there starching people in 15 seconds. But if they do have a few fights in the record that do go longer, you can learn a lot more. Well, if Marvin Vettori, in the most pressure he's ever faced, in the longest fight he's ever been in, he looked his best. And I really do think Marvin Vettori knows how close he is to Israel Adesanya skill-wise. I do think he knows that. I think he took so much from losing to Adesanya in their first fight. And I know people like to hate on Vettori because he goes around like he won that first fight. And that's fine. In his mind, maybe he did. But I think he took a lot of confidence from narrowly losing to one of the better fighters we have on the planet. And I do think that ever since that fight, there's been a different Marvin Vettori. He knows how close he can be to that championship level fighters, and he's starting to train like that now. And if you do look at the fighters he's gone out there and beats the brakes off Carlos Diego Ferreira, beats
Carlos Diego Ferreira.
Not Carlos Diego Ferreira, goodness. He beats Ferreira. Then he beats our boy Andrew Sanchez in what was an odd fight, but still Vettori looked really good. And then, of course, in his last 2 fights, the bad blood matchup against Karl Roberson. We love the striking of Karl Roberson. His ground game leaves a lot to be desired. But Marvin Vettori went out there and did what you'd expect him to do. Immediately takes him down, gets a head and arm choke, submits him. That's another thing about Marvin Vettori's game. Physically, I would say one of the stronger guys at 185. He does have that kind of, I'll say Yoel Romero build, but it's true. Marvin Vettori is a very big guy for this weight class. And if he does start to get dedicated to his wrestling early on in fights against guys like Kevin Holland, even against guys like, let's throw in Kelvin Gastelum, I'll even throw Robert Whittaker in there. If he can get wrestling these guys really early, he's going to tire them down a lot just because of how big and physically strong Marvin Vettori is. But I'm going to bring it back to you on this question. You asked me, what can Kevin Holland do to meet Marvin Vettori? I think his only chance is landing a big strike at range and going for a submission shortly after. That's the only way I see Kevin Holland winning this fight.
You look at this for Holland, and I liken it to Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley lost 3 big fights against the highest level competition at welterweight. And what did he do in his last fight? He went for broke, and he had to. That was all he could do. And he did exactly that. And people commend him for it. They do.
Bad fighter to do it against.
Still lost the fight. But I expect Kevin Holland to almost do the same thing. You look at it. Let's go 5 on in, because you can't really go back too far. But Joaquin Buckley, he wins that fight. Buckley had opportunities, but Holland looked good, and he won it handily. Darren Stewart, that was a weird fight. It was a split. It was a close one. Stewart kind of rallied. He beat Charlie Ontiveros that came up on short notice, up a weight class, hurt his neck. Like, that was a weird fight. Good win for Holland. You can't take anything away from him. And then Jacare, well, that was kind of crazy. The punch, and the punch, and the punch, and it was all over. The Brunson fight was 2 weeks ago. Now, we had an episode Early Stoppage, which is a podcast with Fight Night Picks, myself and John Franklin.
Check it out.
We talked about it in retrospect, where for Kevin Holland, would it make sense for him to switch gyms? He's been with Travis Lutter for a long time, who, listen, reached almost the top of the heap at middleweight, this weight class, fought Anderson Silva for the belt. He earned his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt under Travis Lutter. But in his last fight, it was almost like the spotlights got to him. He was more focused on barking back and forth with Dana White and Khabib, and that was kind of it. And then in the 3rd round, the 4th round, the 5th round, he's still not totally listening to his coach. And if I'm Travis Lutter, it's all right, hey, bud, I get that Big Mouth is kind of the moniker here. We're having fun with it. But you got to put up or shut up at one point, and he didn't. So it's really tough for me to see that performance 2 weeks ago. This guy was my 2020 Fighter of the Year, and 2 weeks ago, he put on a bad performance. He laid an egg. Did he crack Brunson a couple times? 100% he did. But Brunson totally out-wrestled him. When he was on top, Brunson wore on him, and he just hammered away, and he won that fight handily. 2 weeks after, you're going to take on a younger version of Derek Brunson and Marvin Vettori that's a southpaw with a piston of a left hand. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. Kevin Holland can definitely go out there and knock him out. I mean, for Marvin Vettori, though, he does have an added X factor of a former and current, I should say, training partner. Now, has he trained a little bit with Khalil Roundtree in the past? Yeah, you're going to work in some of your striking. You're going to work in some of the kick game from a guy like Roundtree that has since moved over to Tiger Muay Thai and Thailand. But for Vettori, he spent a lot of time with Sean Strickland. A long, rangy striker, a big guy for the weight class that does a lot of things that Holland can do. Is he as mobile? Not so much, but he's a very good striker. You've seen that pre- and post-motorcycle accident from Strickland. For Holland, it's just a tough ask, and I remember saying this before the Brunson fight. Now, Matt switched his pick on question mark kick to Brunson, and I had Holland.
I had mine originally as Brunson.
No, you didn't. We both had Holland. I know we did. We can check the tapes. But you switched it over to Brunson, and I kept it with Holland. But I know I said, look at that stat for takedown defense. It's incredibly porous. 51% takedown defense for Kevin Holland. It's not like that happens overnight. That happens throughout a career. And for Kevin Holland, yeah. Is it weighted a little bit by his first fight in the UFC up a weight class on short notice to Thiago Santos? Sure it is. But he gets taken down by Will Santiago. Then Thiago Santos. He takes down John Phillips. Again, you want to give Jack Shore the comp, the Welsh wrestling, talking to. John Phillips wrestling sucks. Gets taken down 6 times by Mearshart, or wins a split decision. Gets taken down by D. Kirko. Taken down by Brendan Allen. Taken down by Darren Stewart. Taken down by Jacare Souza, albeit he knocked him out. Taken down 6 times by Derek Brunson in a 5-round fight. Is he fight fresh? Is he still ready? For sure he is.
This is my issue, though. No one's talking about the amount of damage that Kevin Holland ate in that fight. And I understand he was the one who got dropped. It's not like he got dropped and then got dominated on the mat. He ate a lot of heavy ground and pound strikes from Derek Brunson, though. And I do like what you brought up. We talked about the 5-on-in and how he looks in his recent record. I don't care about any Kevin Holland's recent fights except for his last one. And I don't often say that, but that last performance left such a sour taste in my mouth because even just look at the second round. Kevin Holland almost knocks out Derek Brunson. There's actually a positive to take from that round that if you talk to your coaches, they might be able to help you with that in the third, fourth, and fifth. You decided to completely ignore that to talk to Dana White and Habib. And I understand maybe his head is in a different place, whatever the excuse is. But you got dominated, pretty one-sided, just 2 weeks ago. It's hard for me to think that a better fighter in Marvin Vettori isn't going to have similar success to what Derek Brunson was able to have against Kevin Holland. Do I think Marvin Vettori can get the takedown on Kevin Holland? I do. The one thing about Kevin Holland, and the reason that I'm not always as worried about his takedown defense is we both know he is a very good black belt on the ground. My issue is when you fight guys like Marvin Vettori, they're going to be able to take you down and be good enough defensively to not get caught in an armbar in their guard. They are sound enough defensively to be really smart on the ground. And the fact that Vettori has gone out there and fought guys like Jack Hermanson, like Andrew Sanchez, really good grapplers. It's weird that Andrew Sanchez is actually getting a shout out for being a good fighter.
NAIA champion wrestler?
Exactly, but the fact that Vettori's gone out there and had very grappling heavy fights and has just had those really dirty fights. Go back to the Omari Akhmedov fight. Yeah, it was a draw, but it was just one of those really tiring fights from both guys. And you can tell that at the end of the fight, both guys are absolutely spent. I've seen Marvin Vettori get himself to absolute exhaustion and still be able to perform at a very high level in MMA. I've seen Kevin Holland face a little bit of adversity and just completely get knocked off his game plan. So for me, I'm picking Marvin Vettori overwhelmingly in this fight.
If you're Kevin Holland, again, game plan for Derek Brunson, what is it? Strike from the outside and hope he doesn't close distance?
Pretty much.
Probably has to be the same game plan against Marvin Vettori. And can Vettori get cracked? Yeah.
Got a chin, though.
Got a pretty good chin, though. So, again, you look at striking differentials. Does Vettori absorb more than Holland does per fight? Yeah, he typically does. Again, Vettori, you have less of a sample size in the UFC because Holland just fought every other weekend last week. And that's the thing. It worked for him last year. So who's to say it won't work for him this year? It's going to be tough, though. He kicked off the win streak with Fluffy Hernandez. He ended it with Jacare Souza. That's an incredible progression. Jacare Souza is out of the rankings now, and he's fighting Andrea Muniz coming up to a screen near you. So can't wait to predict that one and break that one down. As far as the odds are concerned, Marvin Vettori opened a minus 230 favorite. He's now minus 325. And for Kevin Holland, he at this point is a plus 251 underdog, open a plus 188. So the line continues to drop on Marvin Vettori. And if we have a look at the total votes over on Tapology, listen, you got 924, 83% Vettori, and you have 56% by decision, a further 25% by submission. Listen, I get it. There's going to be people out there, and I want to hear from you. Who are you picking in this fight? Are you going Italian Dream, even though it should be Stallion? Because for me, I think of it, and it's like, you make me feel like I'm living a Ryan Parrish dream. Like, I don't know many Italian singers. And for Kevin Holland, Trailblazer, like, he's been there. He's done that. Marvin Vettori is a tough ask on a full camp, let alone 2 weeks.
Exactly. No, I couldn't agree more. And that's the thing that... Here's the thing that is lost when guys come in on short notice. Because there's one thing, we see so many people do it that it just kind of becomes a normal part of MMA. But in a 5-round atmosphere, for you to be asked to fight an extra 10 minutes, and I understand Kevin Holland's coming off a 5-round fight, but still, it's not like he was training at his peak for the last 2 weeks. I'm sure he took time off in between. I understand he would be full-time training since when he signed on for this fight, but you're asking him to fight a poor stylistic matchup for him in the first place on only 2 weeks' notice.
One other point about that, just quick. You know, he's kind of teased the welterweight thing. He weighed 183 for the fight against Brunson, so I don't expect the weight to be an issue.
That's a good point.
I don't even really expect the cardio to be a huge issue. I expect Marvin Vettori wearing on you to be the biggest issue. So yeah, we both have Italy's Italian Dream. Marvin Vettori to get the win. Really looking forward to the entire card. 15 fights, 4 interviews, Dawkins, sure. You've got really big ones with Joe Solecki and Sasha Palatnikov. All sorts of great content with Fight Night picks we brought back this week in MMA. There's early stoppage, and as I said before, question mark kicks on Saturday. We get to offer up our final picks, predictions, and it's a lot of fun over there 2 hours before the prelims. So make sure you tune into all that great stuff. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Fight Night Picks, at Craig Allen FNP, at Matt Allen FNP. Like I said, really looking forward to the week that we have ahead in MMA. So keep locked in with Fight Night Picks, and as we always say, let's get into it.